Welcome to episode 5 of the Young People's Corner podcast. Today we're going to be talking to some of our members about generations working together, how the young generation understand the old generation, and how the older generation can share some of their experience and teach some of their knowledge to the young generation. What we aim to talk about is what life was like growing up and how things are now, and just understanding the overall situation for people with learning disabilities, those that are young now and those that are slightly older. So I hope you enjoy listening. Thank you.
I just want to ask you then, Shaun, to start with, just tell us about yourself and I guess what life is like and things about what education was like as a young person.
I'm Shaun. I am 36 years old. I basically went to a primary school to start with. It was really difficult because I was the only disabled person there at the time. When I went to secondary school, I went to a special needs school. So it meant that I basically was with loads of different disabilities. And then at college, it got hard again because I got treated like a kid.
Did you get the support from the adults and the surroundings at the time when you was going through school and all of that?
Through school, I had a liaison because they felt that I needed one-to-one support. But after that, I didn't get, it was more like an LSA, so I would support whoever needed the support.
And what years did you go to school?
I went to school in 1991 to 1996, and then 96 to 2002, if I remember something correctly.
Going to school in the 1990s, do you feel that there was like a lot of understanding around learning disabilities and young people?
No, not at all. I think people just didn't understand anything what was going on because obviously I was quite new and they just weren't used to disabilities. As I said, I was the only person in my primary school with disabilities. So it was really, really difficult to start off with and people just didn't know what to do.
Do you think that things have changed now with this generation? Do you think that there's more understanding about learning disabilities?
I wish I could say yes, but I'm afraid I've got to say no. I think children today are even more spiteful because they just do not understand what is going on and the curriculum doesn't help.
What about the older generation, like when you was growing up?
The older generation I didn't have a problem with, actually. The older generation seemed to understand a lot more.
I could ask Mick as well.
There was nothing in our day about help with learning disabilities and stuff. I always thought you were a troublemaker if you weren't catching up or you said you were quick when you're not. If they had the right teaching like they did. Well, when I did leave school in 73, 74, Wood Green, what came Frank Wise, was the only school that had somebody that knew about learning disability people and stuff. So we learned to take through that. Said, well, you just got a learning disability and it's able to work with if you know how to get around it. And for work-wise, I learned to use different ways to doing jobs. And today, the kids today, they seem, because they now know more about it, they seem to get a lot more better help at school and that. In our day, it was sort of thrown to the back of the class sort of job and left there to do your own sort of thing.
What was the older generation, so like your teachers and the adults around you, were they understanding?
Being in the early school, no. When I got to the last school, they started to sort of work things out. Children on, they didn't. I got kicked out of there because of not behaving, because of not knowing what they were trying to teach me, and I just sort of messed about too much, and they kicked me out of the school. My grandparents were pretty good because they taught me more at home, and mum and dad did.
What was life like after you left school?
Oh, I was lucky because I went into jobs where I knew people. When I went to my first job in catering, my dad and mum knew the manager of the hotel. They knew that. When I left there and joined the fire service, my mum was already at Mortimer Fire Training College. So she knew the Gloucester head station officer there. That's how I got into there. But then I got through into the Home Office driving job through my second cousin Bruce. who was in charge of drivers for the Home Office. So I was lucky because I had people I knew who were offering me the jobs. I think I might have been in real trouble if I had to go, proper interviews and stuff. I don't think I would have got through them.
And I think that one of the things that people mention quite a lot is going to interviews and applying for jobs and things. And it's interesting that you're saying that, before you could go into jobs by knowing people, but now it seems like you have to go for more interviews and filling out forms and going online. I want to ask like Shaun and Adi, just I guess experiences of things like applying for jobs and these kind of things, and if this generation, the employment world is understanding of people.
It's a lot harder nowadays applying for jobs, and every job I apply for, I make sure I've got a learning disability, they turn you down straight away. Don't want you, no letters, no phone call, nothing. They don't even give you a chance anymore what I used to.
Is that before they've even met you or
Yeah,
got to know anything?
You fill in an application form online, so you're waiting about a couple of weeks, or you process it, they just don't get back.
But from what I can notice is that there's a lot of things people have in common with the older and younger generations. I'm sure even the older generation. So Michael, do you still find now that even though, before with jobs you could know people and things, but do you find now that you have to fill out forms and do things on a computer that can be quite complicated?
Yes, I do. I find it's more now as you've got to do forms and that. Because I only learned to read about 2-3 years ago, proper for a job, but on computers, it's sort of trying to work out how to do things and that, and when they do send you something through, it's not in easy read. It's all these long words and things. I'm lucky because Pam can read pretty well, and I've got other friends who can read. I think in our generation, it's harder because there's more modern stuff coming in there every time. And with youngsters, they all used to the technology, most of them are. They can get on and do it, where they might struggle with the reading bits and stuff, but they seem to know how to work it out.
What support would people need to improve things in that way?
They need more easy read to start with, more easy ways of explaining how to use equipment and stuff. I'm lucky because I got AD. If I do get stuck on the laptop or something, or I can always call AD and he comes and 2 seconds sorted it out.
So would you say then, having people around you that you're close to and can help you is an important thing?
Yes, it is. When you got us learning disabilities and that, if you've got somebody around that can help, very helpful.
Yeah.
About the youngsters, they still get the same I get confused so easily.
Would you say then, sometimes having family around you can be helpful because they're close by and and trust them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, family around, if they know you and they know what you're struggling with, they'll help you. I was lucky when I grew up because my mum and dad were pretty good with me and my sister. They taught us mostly, because we moved around in the RAF, we were getting taught at home mostly. We might move from one place to another because it'd be probably about 3 or 4 weeks before we get into another school. By that time, mum and dad were teaching us at home. I think I learned the math side better easier, and she learned the reading and writing side easier.
Yeah, so you can help each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Shaun, if you had a difficulty or needed help with something, or doing a form or something, who would you go to for help normally?
If I need help with form, it would be my carer, but if it's computer based, then usually I'm okay because I've been on computers since I was 5.
Okay.
So I'm quite computer literate, which is lucky again. But if I didn't get brought up with computers, then it would be more of a struggle. It depends on what I need help with.
One of the things then is that I guess growing up as a slightly younger generation, growing up in the 90s and things, is that they're introducing the computers, and so you get used to it at a young age.
Yeah.
And it kind of sets you up in that way. But
yeah, I got very lucky because I actually was the only child in my school to have a computer because they knew I was struggling. So they gave me a computer, and then that's how it started.
And do you find like the community around you is understanding of learning disabilities, so around the area that you live?
Again, I would love to say yes, but I'm 50-50 on that. I don't really feel safe out and about on my own. If I've got a group of us, that's fine, but on my own, I'm not. Because of my disability, I just don't feel safe.
And is that with the older generation or the younger generation?
Both, because if the older generation get a bit merry or drunk, as they say, you just don't know what they're going to do. And the younger generation, you just don't know if they're going to be ignorant or not. So it depends on if they have a drink or not.
Mick and Adi, like, what do you think of the community around you?
Not 100%, but I would say 50-50. Really, for Banbury, not majority of people do really understand us as it is.
For an older person, I think that it is that the young generation get taken the wrong way half the time. As older ones, of course, if you've been brought up grow up, roughly at the same time, same years and stuff, they seem to know that they sort of allow certain things where the youngsters against youngsters don't. They'll go and be really nasty or go and hit a disabled or person with learning disabilities and that. But I sold a lot of them usually, if they have, it's sort of when they've walked into them or been drinking and sort of done it. But mostly I find the older ones with the older seem to be all right. It's just the older ones with the younger generation are the ones that they seem to sometimes have problems with.
What do you find like things like going to shops, like, just when you go to shops in general, like you got people like the public and you got people working in the shop or security guards or general, like just going out to the shops and these kind of things. It could even be things like, you're buying an item or you want to know the price or knowing where stuff is, what you need.
When I go shopping, when I need to ask somebody, I usually go and sort of find somebody around. And I find most of the people, because I've sort of hidden mine over the years, that people don't realise I got it until it gets to certain points.
Just want to introduce you all to Kane quickly. So Kane is a newer member who's joined My Life, My Choice. And I've wanted to introduce Kane to you all for a long time.
Okay. How do you find when you were growing up?
It was all right. It was, normal child, just trying to get on with life. Didn't always find it easy, but still had to get on with it. School life wasn't the best either. Like, even from primary school to secondary, it was like I found it quite hard. Like, with my own like disabilities and stuff, I struggled. In the end, I just got through it, I guess. But things can be hard sometimes, and we all just got to try and like push ourselves to that limit to get what you want, because you aim for the stars, you aim for exactly what you want, and the only goal to get that is to push yourself.
Did you have any help with your teachers and all that at school?
Not exactly. Like in secondary school, yes, not so much primary school. Primary school didn't think anything was like really wrong or anything. They didn't like understand where I was coming from or anything. They just kind of like threw me under the carpet the minute they had an opportunity. It was like they just thought, you know what, he's like everyone else, he's just acting on it. He's not gonna, you know what I mean? No, primary school was awful, and then secondary school, I will say secondary school wasn't all good, as Pat knows, but as we've known each other a long time, I got more help at secondary school than I would have done in a primary school, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Some teachers in a secondary school were a lot more helpful than a primary school. It says a lot, to be fair.
Yeah, see, I didn't have all that help when I was at school. I went all through school with not having anybody really helping us, because back in my day, they didn't really know about the learning disabilities and that. It's only when I got to my last school, what I did the last year and a bit at, that they had somebody that knew. So I've gone all the way through having to do it all myself. So have you done any work at all?
Yeah, I'm currently in a job at the moment, but I can't say it's easy, and it's not, and it's quite difficult to keep my head on sometimes. I'm getting through it, but it is quite a struggle. I will be honest, working is quite hard.
I know how that feels. I did four jobs before I stopped working, and now I'm with Life My Choice. It seems to get me back in doing things again.
Yeah, that's the same with me. I've started My Life, My Choice, and it feels like I'm going out more. I'm coming to see Pat sometimes, having a chat, and I'm helping him sometimes as well. It feels a lot better as well. I can see where you're coming from.
Do you think that sometimes people with disabilities are treated like kids, either in school
100%.
or in, you know, in the community, that people get treated, you know, treated like kids rather than adults?
Yeah, 100%.
As an adult, feeling if you're, you know, like fully, you know, kind of understood and everything. And sometimes I think it's one of the worst things when adults aren't being treated like adults and they're being treated like they're much younger.
The problem that I have is mostly when I was at college, especially my first year, I was 16, I was being treated like I was a 5-year-old, which is even more degrading because you're like, hold up, I'm almost adulthood here and you're treating me like a 5-year-old, which is more condemning than if I was at primary. I wouldn't mind it if I was at primary so much, because I would sort of understand why. But when you're at college, it's not, you shouldn't be getting treated like that at college. Not good.
Well, it's not good at all. And I think that, you know, people as adults should be treated like adults.
Yeah, totally.
And want to ask AD and Mick, kind of what are your thoughts on that? If people with learning disabilities are fully understood as adults, or if they're treated like they're much younger?
I don't know. When I was younger, yes, but when I got a bit older than that, no. But I think because I stood on my own ground, got a job. So I think that most of the ones who are the younger lot seem to get more treated like kids and that. And when you get older, they seem to sort of not so much.
What age did that change for you, Mick?
I think I was about 25, 26. I think because I sort of got in with the right sort of people that were like very good friends and stuff that always treated me like a SM and not like somebody that hadn't, you know. Well, sometimes I didn't have a clue what they were on about, but they treated me, you know, exactly the same. That if I didn't understood, one of them would turn and say, "You sure about that or not?"
Yeah. So, like, what can people do to help each other? Like what can the younger generation do
Well,
to help the older generation?
And if they got very good friends, then it's like Shaun and AD. They might take the mickey out of each other, but they both know each other so well, and they are good for each other. That's what you need. You need somebody who is there that's good for you to help you, and then make sure that other people treat you with respect and stuff. As an adult, not a child.
Shaun, what do you think the younger generation can do to help the older generation?
I think be more respectful. I really, really do. I think that's the main problem with children of today is they do not respect their elders as much as they should do. And I also think that's to do with two things. One is school and one is parents. It's about how the parents bring up their children, and it's also about how schools treat the children. So there's the problems that I think that is the issues.
Thanks for that. That's true. Kane, what about you? What can the young generation do to help the older generation?
Well, I totally agree with Shaun on the respect part, because let's face it, every teenager is just like mouthy now. They're just like, it's not like us as people, they just don't care who they hurt. And it's like you can go out in the street and you can see how much disrespect they show another person. It could be an elderly person, it could be an adult like me and you, Pat, it could be anyone. They just don't care. And the fact is, right, we should be respecting the elderly in general. because that's just how people should be. They have lived a life, if you know what I mean, and they know a lot of things. We could learn from them, they could learn from us. And I think if that was to happen, there would have to be respect involved. So, for example, they can teach us a thing or two, and we can teach them a thing or two about today's world. It's like we need them and they need us. For some reason, it just never seems to happen like in a normal world anymore. It's like everything's just gone to flames, really. I think we just need to really help each other, really, because it's just what we should do as a community, if you know what I mean. We are a world full of different people, and we don't all have the same views. That's fair enough, but we do need to have that mutual respect for others and not just ourselves. And teenagers, they just don't see that nowadays. They think it's all about them. We owe them a living, if you know what I mean. It's just not fair at all. And we all go out and grind while they're doing their own thing. They just think they own the world, and they don't. They really don't.
Do you think that the crime rates are higher now with the young generation?
100%, Pat. The crime rates are ridiculously high now, with knife crime and like even getting a criminal record at a young age. That just shows either where the parents come from or that their child clearly needs some support by someone to get them that stable help what they need, to show them a bit of love maybe every so often, just so they're on the right path instead of on a warpath.
Nick, what do you think about the crime rates these days with the younger generation?
Well, today's younger generation, I think most of them don't have the parents, they don't respect their parents. When the parents tell them to do something, they don't do it. They seem to get away a lot more. In our day, we just saying like the local police officer would have took us to our parents, and really the parents would get the parents to deal with it. And nowadays, there's none of that. They goes out there, they'll go and do stabbings, they ride motorbikes at the age of 15 round streets and that. And the police can't do a lot at all, hardly. They give ASPOs out to them, but they still go and break them in about 5 minutes later. They're out doing it again. But there's nothing really in place nowadays, I see, for the youngsters and teenagers especially to deal with when they do go haywire. In our day, we had ball school to deal with the kids that would like it, but now there's nothing there. We always see you get all the mouthful when we tell them you can't do that and that, and they'll give you a load of mouth about it and everything, swear at you everything left, right, and centre. It makes you feel like that you're not safe with them around, especially go around with 10, 11 of them in a gang. Well, like in Banbury, we had 2 knifings and that in the last 4 weeks. But that's the thing with the youngsters today, I think, that they haven't they haven't got the respect of their own parents.
I don't think the younger generation know what right from wrong.
Now with some of you have mentioned that with the young generation, the crime rate appears to be higher.
Yeah.
How does this affect people with learning disabilities?
I think they'd be scared to go out. They'll be very careful for people with learning disabilities.
The word discipline has come really into effect, sadly, in the worst way, but there isn't any, as Mick said. People will be scared because there is no self-defense for people with learning disabilities or disabilities in general. So it's really, really difficult.
Yeah, so AD was saying that people with learning disabilities would be scared to go out. Mm-hmm. And you're saying as well that it's in a way they can be vulnerable if they can't defend themselves.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's really, really damaging, and it's dangerous. When we're on our own, we're scared. It's as simple as that. When we've got a group of us, we feel a lot more confident. When we're on our own, it doesn't matter, because when you've got a group against you, that's all, you don't know what they're going to do. Yeah. The problem is we don't see the young people that are nice very often, Pat. And it is sort of ageism, but at the same point of view, it depends on how society is. If society is all we see is the bad teenagers, then what are we to do? It just brings up a bad reputation.
What could we do for those young people that are trying to be positive, they're staying out of trouble, they're nice people? How do we support them?
I think you just be polite to them. I mean, if they're staying out of trouble, not giving mouth, then you be polite. The problem that we've got is that there aren't enough of them. That's the issue.
But compared to today, the kids today don't have anything like we used to in our day. We had local football, we had youth clubs, we had all different activities what we could go and do. Today, the kids haven't got. They took away things like we used to have a little swimming pool in a park. They took it away. So the kids used to all climb in there and that, and you sort of had half the trouble because they were doing something else somewhere else. And even with learning disability kids and that, they're all mixed in together and that. The Cubs, the Scouts, they all, had things for them to do. And today, I've seen the local kids, they've got nothing to do. There's nowhere for them really to go and play football anymore. There's most places we used to go in, most of the parks we used to go, there'd be a football goal post up or something. Or they would have, Chipping Norton Park, when I moved to Chippy, we had goal post one end, goal and net thing. The other end was a rugby post, and they had a bit in the middle where you could play cricket, but they don't seem to have them. They had swings, slides, roundabouts, all different things for the kids to use. But today you go and look in the park, there's hardly anything, unless they're little youngsters. If they're, about up to about 8, 9, there's something for them to do. But after that, terrible.
Yeah, because we ain't got a lot of stuff in doing this one nowadays. Teenagers and kids buy consoles and try and find an addictive game to play. But nowadays, for the teenagers, there's nothing to do. You just sat at home and play on your console all day, basically. This is why I go out Wednesday night and play darts. And I've got an extra hobby to do. And work for my life, my choice. I've got the opportunity to do more stuff. To keep my mind busy on track. So I don't actually get bored at home.
Do you think that it's harder for young people with learning disabilities to get involved with activities and groups?
I think nowadays it was harder for people with learning to get into groups and activities. They're not really a sort of coach to help them or train, help them out. They're not really well advertised in their sports selection. So people have had to adapt to that.
So with the work of My Life, My Choice, I want to ask how that can help bring the generations together. So for example, the older and the younger people and how that can help with some of the things that we talked about.
Gig buddies. Gig buddies is usually the first thing that brings to mind, because gig buddies, you are mixing older with younger, and the young person might want to do what's cinema or theatre, so might the older person. So it mixes them together. So Gig Buddies is a social group where you do social events and you basically are matched to what the person likes. So my peer buddy is actually AD, luckily enough for me. So I love my darts, I love music. AD is going to be teaching me fishing, so that'll be interesting. Hopefully I don't drown. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. So that's one aspect. And then some people might like walking or something. So it's really, really good fun. And older and younger people can actually join up together.
Yeah, so that's the chance for people to meet. And Stingray Nightclub would give people a chance as well. AD?
Yes, I was about to say Stingray Nightclub. Get the older generation, new generation come along, and mix together and help support one another. We are one big family.
Yeah.
We all like chilling out and having fun.
Oh yeah, I do.
Now, I think Mick was a really, definitely, if I was to use one example, and I think was a really good example of this. Mick, when we did the picnic.
Oh yeah, the picnic.
And you was there with the younger guys.
Yeah. Giving the ball about with them.
Yeah,
and that.
You was showing them how it's done. You was showing his youngsters.
Yeah, we didn't have a very good goalkeeper, mind.
Can't blame the goalie. Only because it was me though.
Yeah, it's only because it's you. But no, it was good fun, that was.
Yeah.
And of course the youngsters and us older ones got mixed together, kicking the ball about and that.
Yeah, it was good. You got the chance to be familiar and talk. It was great. And so how can people get more involved with My Life, My Choice?
Well, can come to most of the events, like the cycling we went on. That was a good one. That's through Gig Buddies and stuff. We got the boat trip and that. So it's all those sort of things where they could come to meet up with the older ones and get to know us and we get to know them.
And what would you hope for My Life, My Choice to be doing with the older and young generation together?
Well, getting to
Symbolism.
mix and learn about each other, the ways the older ones work and how the younger ones work. Because we work completely different direct ways, most of us do. We go, you know, we're a lot older and a bit wiser. Some of the younger ones teach them how to be safer and stuff when they're out. So I know they with the learning disability, they do sometimes become the target of the lads who are running around on their own. And if they're on their own and the gang's walking around, then there's a lot of, you know, instances where it could happen. You know, people they sort of on their own and then there's no them see them like that, and thinking they'll start teasing them or picking on them and stuff. And I know it upsets them a lot. I know Nady used to be like it when he used to get picked on like that when he was out. But that's all I can say.
Thanks. I think that's a very helpful thing. Kane, what do you think about My Life, My Choice and how it helps younger and older people to come together and work together?
Yeah, I think it's the perfect opportunity to like all come together, get to know each other, do some fun activities, and basically get along with each other, respect each other, meet new people. It's the perfect way to like have fun. I think all the activities help people come out of their shell a bit more as well. So if you've got a lonely person who's on his own who doesn't like coming out, if they come to like say wider groups and that, they meet new people, they may get more confidence to like keep coming back and coming out again, and like instead of staying indoors, they might have that hunt and be like, do you know what? I'm going to go to a group. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to have fun instead of staying in a lonely space where you're on your own.
What would you say to all of our listeners? Like, so for people that are the younger generation, the older ones, like what they can all do to, I guess, to help each other?
For me personally, I think they need to find a way to get on and to find activities with each other, and to basically learn from the young ones' banter, and the younger ones to learn from the older people's respect and discipline, where I think that's from what I believe they can learn from each other. The older people can be miserable, so they need a bit more banter. The younger people need to learn the discipline and respect. So that's how they can work together.
Having a sense of humor and being able to joke and exchange and understand each other is always a good way to build connection. And so like AD and Mick, like what would you like for anyone listening to this right now, like what would you advise them to do, AD?
For me, I played darts with the older generation. Now we've got some two youngsters, and me and Jack played darts with the older generation, and it helps us like to mix with them. We all can have a laugh and a banter with them. So with our team especially, it's a new experience. So we all get along so well. Now we've got Shaun coming along to watch, and even more banter, and it's all having fun.
Yeah, so chances to have fun, chance to have a laugh, chance to learn each other's stories as well. And I know, Mick, you've got a lot of stories and a lot of interesting experiences, and you know, people listening to that can be can be influenced by it in a good way.
Yeah, because the older ones have done a lot more than what the youngsters are, and sometimes it helps the youngsters to know they can do it if they want to go and do it. I always was taught if I want to do it, go and do it myself, and if I get there, I get there. If I don't, I don't. I've been about a bit, but yeah, it's because of my age. And all the youngsters got that to come.
We also spoke to Paul to find out his views about generations working together to support people with learning disabilities. Here's what he said.
I was born in 1970 and I was born in Oxford, bred and born in Oxford. And it just, I know Oxford like in back of my hand now.
Do you think the younger generation is understanding of people with learning disabilities?
No, not really, because there are some people that do, though. There are some, like my Jackie's niece and all that lot, and niece all that lot does and everything. People close to us know,
What do you think the situation is like at the moment for young people with learning disabilities?
Well, they're not much for them.
How can the younger generation help the older generation?
The younger generation going out somebody like Jackie. They could like, oh hello, Jackie. You want us to come down with you to help you do your shopping, help with the shopping because people in a wheelchair can't reach south. They could do that. They could help that, or like take them to somewhere out for the day, and they go to help them do things.
So if you've got the older generation and the younger generation, what things do they all have in common?
Like the older generation, like my nan, she don't know about technology or anything. The younger one could help help the older generation to do technology, like doing Zoom and that kind of stuff.
What help does the younger generation with learning disabilities need, do you think?
Give them better education. Not like me, I didn't have no education at all. I didn't know how to do reading, writing, to join in together and to mix together, not put them into one area.
And what do you think older people with learning disabilities need?
More care, more looking after, and more activity, because a lot of the older generation now, they're not got much activity because sometimes most of the bingo places closed down. To get the old generation and the new generation to get together and mix together, go out for, if depends how open, do things, not leave people behind.
Yeah, and in fact, Paul, one of the points that came out from the notes that we have on Young People's Day, one of the aims is that no one gets left behind.
Yeah.
No one gets left behind, and I think you summed that up really well.
Yeah, that is true.
And that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, that is what I say. I said that all the way through the time, and like I said in our meeting last week and our training, I said we don't leave anybody behind. They're always welcome. They're always welcome. And we are normal people like us. I know we got learning disability.
Dawn, when did you grow up, and what was it like?
I went to a special school, and them days, it's a horrible word, it was called handicap, but obviously that's changed now. So I went to a special school in Chipping Norton. So yeah, I did find it difficult because there wasn't many people with learning disabilities there. So yeah, it wasn't easy.
Did you enjoy anything about school?
Well, I would have enjoyed it more if I could understand a lot of it, yeah.
What was it like growing up?
So it's certainly different to what it is now.
What was it like, things like going to the shops and shopping and just in public, like how
Well, they were just
was
nasty because they didn't understand. Well, nobody knew anything then. They were just calling me names and just being horrible to me.
And do you think things have changed now?
I certainly think they are. Yeah, they have. Because there was, in schools now they've got people to help them with, one-to-one. None of that when I was at school. And name calling and that. I mean, it still happens now, but it's not as bad as it was in those days. So it has got a bit better.
And Minty, what was it like, like growing up and when going places like the shops and
basically it was quite awkward, but like once I sat in my ground and said like, leave me alone, because you don't know me at all, don't call me names, and they were like, okay, I better back off.
And Dawn, when you was growing up, did you have people around you that understood learning disabilities?
Well, I don't know whether I actually understood it, but they wasn't really horrible to me. They were my friends, and we had a laugh and everything. And obviously now, at My Life, My Choice, well, we're just one big happy family.
The younger generation, do you think that they're more understanding about learning disabilities?
I want like, because that's like, because now it's like you leads up someone in your family member with a disability and whatever, and at schools in the classroom they let up 5 people with disabilities.
And I think they learn it when, from, when they're at schools and colleges, how to handle people with learning disabilities.
With people, are they more understanding now of learning disabilities?
I think so. I mean, you're going to get the odd one that isn't, but I think the majority of them are.
What could the older generation do to help the younger generation understand about learning disability?
I suppose we could tell them, if somebody's, says, why are you doing this? We can actually explain to them what it is. Because if they're not told, they're not going to know, are they?
Normally, if the parents not gonna tell them, if the parent being rude to someone in wheelchair, then they are more likely the child will copy them.
In other words, sometimes people can pick up words at home and they don't know what they mean, but they're actually really bad words.
Yeah.
That's a really good point you made, that it starts at home, and if the parents can teach them, it makes the job of everyone else easier, because they know right and wrong from the start that you shouldn't call people certain words.
Yeah.
And that they should have respect for people. Yeah, and like you said, Dawn, it's good. Like, tell them and they'll know. And then that has a bad impact on them.
And it could happen to them. They could be in a chair, they don't know,
Yeah.
What could the younger generation learn from the older generation?
How
hard. I suppose if we teach them.
So how difficult it is for people with learning disabilities. Thinking about learning disabilities, do you think that sometimes people with learning disabilities are treated as younger than they are?
When I was at school, I was kept back because of my disability. I think if they give me more support, I will be with my friends.
So you was held back. You was like, you had learned lots, and then they were treating you like year one. What do you think of people with learning disabilities, if they're treated as young or if they're treated like adults?
Yeah, I think they should be treated like adults. I mean, we're the same with everybody else. Just because we have a learning disability doesn't mean to say we're not, stupid and things like that.
Half of the people will have some flaws of disability because they need more help.
Yeah, so they might need more help with something, but they're still capable of doing things.
Yeah.
People should be allowed to live their life freely.
That's
definitely an important thing. How does the work of My Life, My Choice help both the older generation and the young generation?
By having self-advocacy groups and doing things like boat trips and, all the fun stuff.
Meeting new people.
Yeah, so it gives people their chance to meet new people and to be able to talk to people of different age groups. So places like Stingray, they allow older people to go there, they enjoy having a good time, and there's newer people, and it means that people get to meet each other and they get on. What was it like, Dawn, when you was growing up, for people with learning disabilities having things to do and going out?
Well, we just played on the swings and made our own entertainment. So there was no digital stuff like mobile phones and that like there is now, and iPads.
What was the best part about growing up, and what were the best things to do?
Hanging out with your family and things like that. Actually, they include me in things what they were doing. They never let me out unless someone to do it.
So basically having friends that help you to join in with.
Yeah.
What's it like nowadays for young people with learning disabilities finding jobs?
Hard. You can't win, really.
So people are treated unfairly and not given jobs then? when
Yeah.
the employer finds out that they have a
Mm.
disability.
I think it's very difficult to get a job unless you go with somebody to help you get a job, like the job centre or something.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Dawn, what was it like when you was growing up for people with learning disabilities trying to find jobs?
Very difficult. When I said, you know, when you say to them you've got a learning disability, they just don't want to know. And then you get all the rubbish jobs if you do get a job.
Do you think this younger generation is better behaved than the older generation?
Oh gosh, yeah, definitely.
Just wanted to find out why that is.
Well, no, I think they're more behaved than what they were in the younger day. In the past years, they weren't very good, but I think they're behaving really well now.
What would you want everyone to do to like make things better for young people with learning disabilities and also older people as well? What should everyone do?
Be nice to one another.
Be more understanding.
Yeah.
Come back. Like, be sympathetic.
The people should be more understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to know what it's like as well.
Yeah.
And to try and spend a day knowing what it's like and how hard it is.
Yeah.
That's a really important thing.
Dear listeners, we hope that you have enjoyed hearing the members of My Life, My Choice talking about how generations can support each other, and also learning more about the life experiences of people with learning disabilities. We hope that you continue the good work of supporting the different generations to look after each other. Make a difference this International Youth Day and every day. Until next time.